Hey, it's Emily. I'm coming to you live from the Heartfelt Creations Design Room. How are you doing, my friends? It's good to be with you. I've been reading your comments. We've been having an amazing time just getting ready for this class. Tell me who is incredibly excited. I can't wait to show you how to really create those beautiful, delicate vellum flowers that you've been seeing online and adding them to the most exquisite mini album. I don't know where you find yourself today, but some of us are extremely new to crafters, and then we have crafters that are taking their 9th online class. They're taking their 6th online class, and we have crafters joining us today from all over the world. So you're not alone in your home today. We are gathered together in a virtual craft room to have some fun together, to learn some new crafting techniques, and make some beautiful things. Who's excited? So if you're watching live, I would love to know who of my crafting friends is watching. So if you could just pop in the comments, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. I saw that we have ladies here from Hawaii. We have ladies here from all over the US, Ohio, Sacramento, California. Hello, Lynn. It's good to see you. Hi, Carol. I know we've had a lot of questions about vellum already. So we're going to get started. Now, as we go through, the purpose of this class is for you to learn techniques that you want to know more about. We promise that we'll do our best to teach you what you're wanting to know. And if we don't know the answers, maybe we can figure them out together, right? So who's ready to get started? Now, if this is your first time joining us on an online class, I'm so glad you're here. This is your way to take your crafting to the next level. When you create, there's nothing more frustrating than having a bunch of crafting goodies just like this on your craft room table, on your shelves, in that box underneath the bedroom, underneath your bed, and it's really not doing you any good, right? We want you to not just buy products, but we want you to take it out of the package and have a lot of fun using them. Now, I've gotten the chance to speak to quite a few of you in the past month. You've gotten to tell me what you've experienced in our previous online class, and it's been a lot of fun getting to know you even a little bit more. So today our goal is to learn how to do those mini albums and the vellum. Hi, Margaret. It's good to see you. I can see your comments. We'll do our best to get those answered. I know there's been some questions that have been going across the screen already, but we're just going to have some fun with that. So as we go through, if this is your first time, just a couple things that make your class experience best. If this is your first time, I like to have you just watch the first time through, and then once we're finished, this goes to your account and you can go back and rewatch it as many times as you like. So before the class, we sent out an email with a PDF that told you about some homework to do if you're a seasoned crafter and you want to follow along in the class. That PDF, if you missed it in your emails, it is also right underneath this screen, so you can grab it there. You can just click on it. It tells you all the different cuts. So today I'll mention some sizes and some things that we're cutting, but it will also be in your PDF, so when you go back later and you're doing that homework, you have that right in front of you as well. So who is ready to get started? Hey, Barbara, you said you're from upstate New York. You love the classes. Thank you. Carol, thank you for jumping in. You said pergamano is the art of embellishing and decorating parchment. That is actually kind of a completely different type of crafting style. If you Google it, you'll see some pictures, maybe even some videos that come up with that. Hi, Minerva. It's good to see you, my friends. It feels like I'm hanging out with a lot of my crafting friends today. And what we've found is when we teach online classes is you are some of our most devoted, committed crafters. And so I have been incredibly excited to just get here today and have a bunch of fun with you. So we're going to spend the next couple hours creating this beautiful mini album. We'll get a close-up shot. Who's excited? So to get started, I was like, okay, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the vellum, the embellishments, or the album? So I decided that we'll get started with the base, the album, and then we're going to finish up the rest of the class all about the vellum. So the beginning of the class is going to be all about putting this album together with scratch, and then from scratch, and then we're going to go into the vellum flowers. How does that sound? Okay, so Pat, you said you're looking forward to this. Laura, you said you love it. Denise, you're so excited to attend this class. Hi, Sandy. It's good to see you. Patricia, you said this is I think you said this is your first class. Christy, you said you're here with your mom, Eldine. Hello, Mom Eldine. Kathy, you said you're excited about the class. You have not been able to download the PDF. If you have any technical issues during the class, contact us at 888-773-30888, and I have an amazing team of people that are standing by to help you if you have technical issues at all. So Chris, you said you did the prep. Yay, we had many people that called in prior to the class that had some questions that I know were doing their homework. That's amazing. I can't wait for you to create this with me. So in creating this mini album, we are going to get started with that base. Now, when you create the base, there's a very unique way that we created this one today. This class is designed by our fabulous design team member Rajni Chwala, all the way from India. I know she's on as well. I'm not actually sure what the time zone is in India, so depending on time zone, she might actually be in the middle of the night. Patricia, you said you've been wanting to make vellum flowers. You're so excited to learn. Jane, you said you cannot wait to create this. Debbie from South Bend, Indiana, she's like 45 minutes from here. You said you love taking the classes by computer at conventions and paper craft stores. It's always fun and informative. Okay. Hi, Ruby. Hi, Christy. It's good to see you. Hi, Kelly. You said you prepped some of it, but you're waiting on some supplies. Wow. If you order supplies, I know sometimes it can be like, wait, they can't get here soon enough. So when you look at this book, there's a very innovative concept with this. We took two of the flip fold inserts, the same one, and married them together. So they're now a little mini album on their own. How cool is that? So to get started, I hope you did not miss this, but we are using two of one kind of the insert from Inserts E Craft. We're using the small section. It's this one here on the side, but we're using it twice. So I hope you purchase two of these packets. You could do the same technique that I'm doing today on either or. Each one of these would work, but we chose to do this size today. This is the same technique for using this one. It's just a larger size. You just cut your papers larger. So we're going to flip this on the back so you can see which one we're using. So when you look at the back, we're using the one on the right. So you should have two packets of the E insert, and then we're going to use 4 from this pack of the 6 by 7 inch size here. And, oh no, hang on. Not the 6 by 7 inch, that's the big one. We are using the smallest one, which is the 4 by 6. Sorry about that, it's this one over here. So we're using 4 of this one from this pack and 4 from the second pack. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you want to go ahead and pull those out. Now, the great thing about the flip fold inserts is they're very creative, innovative. But when you make these, sometimes when you open up the packet and you look at this, you're like, it looks like an airplane that's ready to take off, and I really don't know what I should create with this. Unless you're like super creative and you just instantly are like, okay, I could just fold it here and here. So this piece is very large. I'll try to make sure that we can see it very nicely on the camera. Pam, you said you ordered 2. They should be here tomorrow. Awesome. That's exciting. Hi, Barbara. You said you love the vellum flowers and excited about the class. Hello, Beulah, all the way from New Zealand. It's probably early morning for you. Hi, Shanna from Texas, and Virginia from Louisiana. Wow, you are from all over the place, right? Okay, so to get started, we're going to cut into our flip fold insert. So when we look at this today, this small flap on the side is going to be on the right. This flap's going to be on the left. That's the wider flap. And then the long flap that has already cut the scallop from it is going to be coming down from the top. Okay? So when you do this one, you'll see that there's another flap coming up from the bottom. And we wanted to have a decorative piece cut into this. So one of the main dies that we used to cut into this insert was the die that's called Ornate Borders and Pockets. So we used, let's flip this around so you can see which piece that we're using. Let's see, now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm drawing a blank on this one. We are using, it's not this one, it's this one right here. We're using the top piece from this die right here. These two look very similar. The basic difference is this just has a little bit of an extra ripple in it. So I sometimes get confused between those two. Susan, you said you've got some Aragene's Vellum. It's totally worth it, nice and thick. Yes, I can't wait to get to the Vellum part because the Vellum is absolutely fabulous to use, and you'll know why once you have it in your hands and you're ready to work with it. So some of the basics that you'll want during the class today is you'll want to have a ruler, a score pal. We have some of our basics listed on the PDF and on the description of the class that you're taking. But what you're going to do is we're going to cut into this flap. Now when you use this border die, what you'll want to do is, the basic thing I like to do is you can do one of two things. You can just lay this in and make your cut if you want to, and then measure your paper. So we're going to show you how to cut the paper as well, but there's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm going to show you the way that I think is easy. You might have some different tricks that you think are easier too. But when you're doing this, the main thing you want to make sure is that this point and this point are even on both sides. So what I did is I just measured up. If you measure up the sides about 1.5 inches on both sides, that gives you a guide on how far you want your die to come up. So if you literally just place that in, my die is going to cut up just a little bit further, but I have my mark here and my mark is over here, but they're centrally placed. And then I'll just position this in the middle. So we'll tape this down here and we'll tape this down in here as well. Sandy, you said these are fab, buy extras, you'll be making a lot. Yes, when you're buying, I think you're talking about the Vellum, which I just realized something. I do not have all the plates I need for my die cutting machine. So I am needing the base plate. So before we go into that, I missed a step. So I have somebody that's getting me the plates. So while they're getting me the plates to run this through and cut it out, I'm going to switch to something else and we'll keep on moving. So you'll do this cut, this decorative piece. You'll do that on both pieces. So you'll have two of the same kind. So you'll line that up and you'll run it through on this bottom piece. And you'll also run it through on this bottom piece as well. So while I'm waiting on that machine, I'm going to go ahead and just show you how these two will be then glued together, so you can kind of start getting an idea of how that will look. So we're just going to hold out for just a couple seconds. I'm sure that will come pretty quickly. We have some magic hands getting me what I need. We have another craft room right behind me, so they made a mad dash down the hall. Sandy, you said, are you using repositional tape? Yes, I am. I am using the repositional tape. And the repositional tape is a blue painter's tape, and the blue painter's tape is, you could use a Scotch tape as well. Sorry, my camera guys are trying to figure out which plate is the right one. It's kind of funny. They brought in a pink plate. That's not quite the one I'm working for, but we've got the right one coming in just a little bit. We have some hand motions and signals going on. You never know what happens behind the scene. Okay, so yes, Chris, we are using the ornate borders and pockets die, so that is what I'm using right here. So you'll go ahead and tape that down. Okay, yay, we have the plates that we're looking for. I'll go out and grab that for you. Thank you, thank you. Okay. So we have the plates that we're looking for. Yay! Okay, so if you are just joining me, if you could introduce yourself and let me know where you're watching from, that would be amazing. Thank you for your patience as we had a little blip with the plates there, but we've got it. I just had the plates for my molding tool. So we'll put this in the machine. So if you have a smaller machine, if you keep this all folded up and you just run it through partially, you'll be able to run this through a small machine. Sometimes I have a big machine that I can spread out the flaps of this too, but you don't need to do that today. So we'll go ahead and just run that through. I'll just run it through just a little bit. And we'll back that right out. And you've got this all cut out. How cool is that? So we'll bring this out, and you'll see that the edges don't cut out completely, so that just gives you that decorative flap. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and clip the edges. There we go. Hey Barbara, you said you missed some. If you do miss some because of technical difficulties, this class will be added to your account so that you can rewatch it as many times as you want later on. So you've got this piece all cut out on the side. Now your next step is to go ahead and get it ready to glue together. So with this, we're going to glue it together and make sure that you have the one that we just did. So this large flap is on the top, see that? And then we have the large flap on the bottom. Grab your score pal or your score tool and add just a little score line. Let's just bring this over and give yourself an inch spine. Now you could make this spine thicker if you wanted to. I did mine just a little bit wider than the original. The original was like at a 7/8 inch, but I just took it up to an inch so that it's easy for you. So just put that on your score pal and make a score line on the side. Does that make sense? And then you'll go ahead and just bend that up. So that is an inch from the score line that is right next to this cut line on the top, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and just pull this up, and this is ready to attach to the other one. Now, when you go to add a score line to your second one, you're going to do the same thing on this one, except it's on the wide side. So for this one, you're adding, I'm going to add this one to the side. Ruby, that's a great question. You said if we're prepping the large one, which one should we do? If you're prepping the large one, there is is it called fleur border? Oh goodness, I'll have Tracy pop it in the line. It's within this die collection, but it's wider. So I'll have Tracy pop that one in there. Tracy, it's the same, I'm spacing on the name, but it's the same die that was released within that collection on Black Friday 2015. So we're going to go ahead, and for the second one, again, make sure that this large flap is on the top. That's the main thing you'll want to, and then you're making 1 inch score line again from the left, and just to make sure that everything is lined up properly so that your spine is going to be straight. So just do 1 inch on this side. So this flap over here is going to be a lot wider, which is okay. So what we're doing is we're creating the spine for the center. Now mine is just a tad wider than this original book, so you could make it a little bit smaller if you wanted to, but you can kind of see how that spine looks in here. Okay, thanks Tracy, she just popped that Regal border. Yes, it's the Regal border die. Thank you Tracy, she read my mind. So what we're doing is attaching these two pieces together. So to do that, what you'll want to do is just take your, you could even die cut some of this extra paper off it, or not die cut, but just trim it off if you wanted to, totally up to you. But I'm going to use my glue, and I'm just going to go ahead and add that all the way around the inside of this spine. So it's kind of going to be a double spine. If you don't like to have so much paper overlapping each other, you could always go back and trim that off like I just. So we'll fold this. There we go. Ruby, you said, oh yes, I know that Dad, yay. Okay, I know that when we're in class, sometimes when I'm right in the middle of doing lots of techniques and stuff, it can get a little bit intense. But one thing that I love is if you leave comments and tell me when you have that aha moment and what you're learning. So here, okay, so let's make sure that you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm matching up this piece to this spine. So you're basically matching these two spines together. So just go ahead and line that spine up. Oops. And I'm using the dry as clear glue so you have time to move that around. So just be patient with yourself kind of when you're lining that up. Okay, so let's bring this over. And then I'm going to have just flip this one over on top. Oops. Make sure that that closes well on top of it. So I just brought this over. Now you might find something else a little bit easier when you're gluing these two together. But if you close it together like that, it just makes that you have those two together. So that creates your actual album base. Cool? Patricia, you said you hardly ever use tape runner anymore. Chris, you said you already lost me. So just to recap, there is a flap. So when you have these two pieces, there is the long flaps on the top for these two, and there's a flap on the inside. You will just connect those to have a 1/2 inch spine here in the center, okay? So you have those, and I'm gonna lay this one aside to dry. You could use some little clips if you wanted to, and then we'll continue on with that. Shannon, you said this is the best glue ever. You love the fine tip. So right now at this moment in time, don't really worry about how this folds together. Just make sure that you have both of those large flaps on the top. And then you have that 1/2 inch spine that you created in the middle. So this is how it looks. You see this seam here, and you'll also see kind of that crazy seam on the back that's going to get covered with paper. Does that make sense? You could have trimmed this down a little bit. So essentially what you're ending up with, I'm going to put this one aside and we'll show you one that is already dry. So this one, you can see that large flap is already dry, and here you've got that spine in the center. And this one was trimmed shorter in the back too, so you have that flap on the back overlapping as well. Bonnie, you said it's difficult to follow with the sound cutting out. If you have difficulty with the sound, it might be buffering for you. So sometimes the rerun, if you have internet connection issues, will be easier for you to watch on the rerun. So you have these, so you have the bottoms, both flaps cut out with the die that we showed originally. And then when you fold this down from the top, we did an extra cut. Now this flap from the top actually comes with a die cut design in it already, but we wanted it to match with the die that we're going to add on top, so we made an extra cut into that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we did trim down this outside on the left. We're going to trim that down a little bit so you have these large flaps on the top and then the wide flap on the side. And that, the amount that you want to trim off the side is approximately 1 centimeter, or about 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be precise, but that is just an approximate size. It just makes it a little bit more of a narrow flap. So we're going to trim that off real quick, and we'll get started decorating the inside. So this album is actually a very, once you get the technique, anytime you're learning something new, it's like, oh my gosh, this feels difficult. I just don't get it. When you get that feeling, even when you're watching online, it's okay. That's very normal. Right now, I'm learning how to swim. Those instructors make it look so easy, but I have to really practice. So anytime you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I'm getting what she's saying, just rewatch, rewind, and we'll be happy to help you too. If you have questions, make sure that you that use it. Thank you, Angie. ½ inch. Did I say 1 inch? I think I did. How much? Yes, Chris, it was ½ an inch cut off the side there. That's approximate. You could go a little bit more, a little bit less if you wanted to. No big deal. So you'll have the next step. We have these little inserts. These are those, we'll just do these measurements real quick for you so you see these. These came in your Craft Insert E packet. They're the ones that are the 4x6 here on the right hand side. Those are perfect for your photos, and they're just a little bit wider than 4x6, so when you cut a 4x6 panel, the top is actually, it's just a little bit longer than 4x6 as well. So Angie, you said you watch first then you try. Yes, that is the best way to do it, because when you are learning something for the first time, it definitely takes time to kind of process the information and then go ahead and do that. Sue, you said, where did you cut off the ½ inch? The ½ inch was cut off when you have this open and the flaps are up. See that? This wide flap on this side, I cut off a ½ inch off of this side. Okay? So that's the side that we cut that off, and you'll see why right here. We cut that off so we had room for this lace edge. Okay? Jade, you said you tried doing this the same time as on the first class. You also recommend watching along the first time. Yes. The first time you're watching along, obviously I have everything prepared exactly in order. So when you're watching and you're learning, sometimes it can be like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? So lots of ladies have more success watching it one time through and then doing it with the video, pausing it, doing what they're learning, and then continue on with that. Donna, you said you watch and take notes on the instructions for what to cut out. Yay! And as we're going through, when you have those aha moments, just tell me what those are so we can learn those together. So what we want to do with those 8 panels that we have is we want to use that die again from the Ornate Borders and Pockets die, which is this, the top piece from this die. And we want to cut off the bottom of these. Now you can do this a couple different ways. We told you how big to cut out the papers that are going to be on here, but when I'm doing this at home and I don't know how big to cut my papers, when I'm just trimming off a bottom like this and I want my decorative papers to match that I'm going to layer on top, I basically will just do this. I will take my die, I will lay it on just the bottom edge and make sure everything's covered, and I make sure that this edge and this edge are the same distance apart. So that typically is right around 1.5 inches. So I don't know if you can see it or not, but I already made marks on this paper so I could see it. That's right over here. So if I'm gonna make another little mark because my other side is not marked well. So if you do 1.5 inches on this side and 1.5 inches on this side. So this one, rule of thumb, is just 1.5 inches from the bottom is where I make my marks. And then you can go ahead and just lay this on top and just make sure that the die is evenly placed. Basically, you're not wanting it to be crooked is what you're doing. So you could do 2 at once. So let's do that. You could do 2 of these panels at once, just stack them on top of each other and run this through the machine. And we'll cut those out. So we'll do that real quick. If you do 2 at once, just make sure that your papers are lined up and not crooked. So that makes that sometimes I'll just tape them together a little bit or something like that. So we're just going to pull this off, and then you'll have a little bit of the edge still hanging on. So I'm going to grab my my scissors and just trim that off on this side. So you can see what works best for you. If one at a time, I see that this one I should have taped because it slipped just a little bit, so make sure that you tape yours or just do one at a time. 2 at a time sometimes saves time. And actually, if this is chipped off a little bit on the bottom, it's okay because we are going to cover it with paper, so it really doesn't matter. You're just wanting to get the design in there. So I have all these cut already. We are going to use these. I'm going to put these to the side because I have too many. So you want to have 8 of these total. You could also do a straight line across if you wanted to. Sandy, you said these are great classes. I recommend watching them twice, gathering the materials, then going. I love all your tips. And that's what makes these classes great, is you're not just learning from me, but you're learning from a global community of crafters and what they find works. So anytime that you have a tip or anything like that that you want to share as we go along, make sure to add that as well. So our next step when you look at this is typically to go ahead and add those little flaps that we just did. But there is one step we want to do prior to that, because we don't want to get ahead of ourselves in adding our papers. So you'll see that these flaps are on both sides. I'm just going to open this up so you can see it. But they're on both sides, so the left and the right. But before we add these, let's go ahead and layer this large green piece of paper on the background so we can then go ahead and add those pieces on top, okay? So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, one thing, I'm going to lay this to the side. Sandy, you said I'm a fabulous instructor. You know you taught software for 20 years. Thank you. That is amazing. And teaching software for 20 years, kudos to you. That's amazing that you've done something for that long. I'm sure you were amazing with that. I have to say, when I was preparing for this class, I was so excited. I was just like, hey, I can't wait to teach this. And I told somebody, I said, I don't know how anybody can call this work, because we're just having lots of fun learning creative techniques. So I am a crafter I've been crafting since age 9. In fact, my mom introduced me to crafting at a very young age. So this year, we're actually celebrating our 21st year in business in August. So it's fun to be able to not only do what you love, but to share it with others. So this piece, shoot, I had the measurements written down. I threw them away. It's your 4.5 by 8. It's about 8.5 piece. Now in the PDF, you would have gotten these instructions, and we tell you to do 2 of these. So go ahead and just add your glue to the back of this. Now I'm putting this together just a little tad differently than the original one, just to make it a little bit more simple for you. You could have also added some slits, but we want to keep it as simple as possible. And you're asking, what are slits? You'll notice just a little bit, once we've glued this down, you'll know what I'm referring to. So we have this on the big main piece on the back. Kelly, you said, did you ink the edges? Thank you for asking. Yes, I pre-inked the edges. So anytime before you add the papers, if you want to ink the edges, I inked mine in the Peacock Feathers Oxide ink. Or if you have like Forget-Me-Not archival ink, that's a really pretty color that would match too. So totally up to you. Nancy, you said your mom was a teacher as well back in the day. We didn't use daycare. I love it. Okay, so when you do this, just make sure that you stay within the edges of the creased or fold lines that you have. That will make that when you close the flaps. And that's something you can also make sure that you do, is make sure that these edges are folded well. There's a double crease on a lot of those edges, so just make sure you have good score lines there. Jeannie, you said, what paper pack are you using? I am using the Butterfly Dreams paper pack, and actually all the products that I'm using today are listed right underneath the screen that you're watching. So if there's anything that I use that you do not have, just make sure that you get that, and you can click on that and we'll ship those to you. So we're going to add 4 of these on this side and then 4 on the opposite side. Now, one thing that I want you to notice, you can do this 2 different ways. I'm going to show you a way that I think is the easiest way, but you'll see that this one we have just a little gap on the top in between each one. So you can choose how you add yours. This one is probably just eyeballing it, maybe about, it's 1/3 of an inch. It's not very wide. But what I'm going to do, we did not ask you to cut any additional papers out on this. but I'm going to show you a way that you can add these, and then you'll decide which way works for you. It's going to be different for everyone, but what I want you to do is just fold each one of these little pieces on the top. It already has the fold line there for you. And then we're going to go ahead and just glue this on top and just position that so it's pretty much in the center, okay? Now, what Rajani did when she first glued this together is she cut slits into the green paper and slid those pieces in there. If that works for you, you can do that. Or a second trick that I like to do personally is after I've added these, you can just go back and glue your favorite paper strips in the middle. So you could just cut like little pieces of paper and just add it in the center to cover those strips. So you can do what works for you on that. Does that make sense? Okay. Shanna, you said, will you be having a big sale to celebrate 21 years? We have some fun things planned for at the end of August, so stay tuned for that. However, I have something, a fun savings plan for you. As a thank you for taking this class. It's a savings that we rarely offer, but we have a huge group of crafters that signed up for this class. We have hundreds of crafters. Actually, when we do a class, statistics show that only about 30 to 40% of people watching can watch, or that register watch live. So we have lots of people that watch the pre-record. But since we had so many people register, I actually came up with a little bit better savings. So Kelly said, are the flaps overlapping when you glue them down? Yes, they are. They are overlapping so that there's about 1/3 of an inch in between. Now I am using what I call the eyeball technique, but I can measure that exactly for you so that you have that. My tech guys internally laugh when I say the word eyeball technique. We have an inside joke about that right now. Okay, so it is about, let's see here. No, it's more like 1/4 of an inch. Basically, if you spread it out a little bit further, what's going to happen is it's just going to be a little bit lower in this section. And all we're going to glue in this section is this piece of paper and a decorative die on top. So you could choose to do, if you space it further apart, it's totally okay. So you can bring this down and you can, no, that was the top flap. You can bring this down and you can kind of see how those flaps lay there. So they have just a nice little overlap there. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this piece down right away. You could just reserve this for a photo as well. I'm just going to do 3 sides, so if you wanted to pop in some hidden journaling, you could do that. So we'll do that on this side. And then you'll do the same thing on the opposite side as well. So you can just fold those down. Hi Patricia, it's good to see you. We're glad you're able to make it in the class as well. So the first part of the class, we're working on putting this beautiful mini album together. When I'm doing the second side, I do like to bring this down and just make sure that I'm pretty much have it at the same height as the one on the opposite side. So that just flips up and that gets us started. So pretty simple process, and you'll continue to add those pieces down both sides. So this is a great way to add like lots of little photos. Now when you create this, you could create this for Christmas, you could create this for a little wedding keepsake book. You can really use this for whatever occasion you prefer. I would love to know, what occasion or photos are you going to use in this one? Are you going to keep it for yourself? Are you going to use it as a gift for someone? You can use this for baby, wedding, just using different themes of paper. You could have so much fun creating with this. Hi Shirley, it's good to see you all the way from Tyler, Texas. We're glad you're here with us. Yes, as we're going through, as you're watching, if you have questions, just pop those in when you have your aha moments. And tell me, what is your favorite thing about creating mini albums? I would love to hear from you. what you like about creating your mini album. So when you're finished, you can kind of just make sure that both sides are approximately even. We are going to put a lace die on top, so you could kind of play around with that a little bit. If something's a little bit off, you have some wiggle room with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this piece on the left-hand side. This was just a piece of decorative paper that's found in the Butterfly Dreams collection. And then you are ready to continue on. So we're ready to add our decorative papers to these flaps. But before we do that, we're going to add some magnets. Who loves magnets and who's scared about magnet placement? Karen, you said your husband and you will be taking a world cruise next year and you're thinking about preparing some albums. Yay, that sounds fun. Susan, you said you have a goal to use it for a baby album. Your babies are 39 and 36. You're running a little behind. That's awesome. Hey, better late than never, right? Hey, Rose, you said you have 3 gift exchanges with your church groups. You will have to make 4, so you have one for yourself. Great idea. That's amazing. Hi, Shalini. It's good to see you. Okay, back to our crafting. So for the top flaps, you're going to, where are we going to put the magnets? You want to put the magnets before you add any of the papers. Prior to putting the magnets down, remember how I said that we had trimmed this top piece off to match the die. So to do that, I'm going to show you. I was like, where did my magnets go to? Okay, so the papers for the top flaps are cut to 6 3/4 by 4.5 inches. Those papers, you can choose which papers you want to use, or you can also follow the exact papers that we listed on the PDF. I have some here that are already designed, are already pre-cut out, and they're ready to add to my album. The technique I'm going to show you about cutting out with the decorative die can be applied to the flaps we just glued on the inside and the top flaps. So when you cut with this die, the original design on the flip fold inserts does not match this actual die. So it's an easy fix if you want it to match exactly. All you'll do is you are going to cut out your paper to the size that we recommended and do that 1.5 inch cut on the bottom, how we did on the other flaps. Just mark 1.5 inch from the bottom on each side. And then once you've done that, just lay your paper on top of the flap. Use a lead pencil and trace around the bottom. And once you've done that, that gives you that area where you can just go back, lay that die on top of the lead pencil drawing and cut that right out. If that makes sense, say yes. If not, say no, I'm completely lost. So I have already done that, so all I have to do is just clip off these edges, and that is ready to add the paper design on top. Okay, so we are going to, you said that made sense. Yay, you guys are awesome. Okay, so for this one, we'll take a look at the main one so you can see the design of this, but for this one, sometimes I close the flaps at different angles, so I'm going to close everything so you can see the flaps we're working on. So we're working on these top 2 flaps. Does that help? For the top 2 flaps, we're going to add this design, this one, and then the backs are a little bit plainer, but you could choose whichever paper you want. As we go along, some of my papers might be different than the ones that are originally featured, but you can go ahead and just layer that on top and see how beautiful that just fits. But before we do that, we don't want to forget about the magnets. So when you're doing the magnet enclosure, what I want you to do is have the top 2 flaps open. Diane, you said, did you cut them before you got to this point? You can cut them before you get to this point, or you can do what I did earlier. You could actually close this entire piece like this if you haven't cut that yet. Just put your die cutting plates over this piece and run it through your machine partially. So you don't even have to put through this whole piece through the machine. I did that yesterday on mine, and that worked beautifully. So you could just use the die cutting plates. I'll show you what I mean by that. So you would put the die cutting plates just up to here, and you just run it till your machine goes up to that point and then back it right back out. Okay, so Jackie said die cutting is so confusing sometimes. Yes, and sometimes it's also just kind of practicing, playing around with it. If you have a big machine, you could do this die cut on the top first or last, whichever, or not last, but before you put papers on it. So prior to putting any papers down, we're going to put down the flaps and the folds on the inside. We will have the two top flaps open. I'm flipping and flopping here. Bear with me. We'll make that this airplane turns out right. So you'll have the middle flaps closed. You'll have the outer flaps closed. And then what I want you to do is bring up the inside flap. And we're going to glue a magnet here and here. So all I want you to do is just put a kind of a puddle of glue right up here and right in that spot. If you don't have magnets, these magnets are super sturdy. Absolutely love them. And Jackie, you said, I hope this is not a dumb question, but since I was late anyway, can you do this die cutting before you assemble the flaps? Yes, you can definitely do the die cutting before you assemble the flaps. And if the die cutting did not make sense, when you go back to rewatch the class, just make sure that you watch the part earlier of what we did with the die cutting as well. So we've got those two magnets up there. Now, before I do anything else, I like to cover that with my paper right away so that, oops, this one slid, so that it doesn't slide like that. My point exactly. It slips and slides around, especially if I put down a big puddle of glue like that. Laura, you said the magnets are amazing, right? They're so fun. Okay, so we're going to cover that with glue right away so that that magnet is locked in place. Did I say glue? Paper? I meant paper. There we go. Sometimes my brain thinks one thing and my mouth says something completely different. Does that happen to anybody else? Laura, you said those magnets are amazing. Karen, you said, how wide is this spine? The one I put together is a 1/2 inch. That makes it a little bit wider. The one on the original album was more like, when I measured it, it was finished. It was more like 7/8 inch, but I felt like 1 inch would be a little bit easier for measuring. But you can adjust the spine to be a little bit smaller than 1 inch if you like. Totally up to you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and glue this in place. Who has a hard time covering the beautiful sides of the paper? Okay, so we're gonna put this on the opposite side. Just make sure that's lined up on the top. If you struggle with your paper, this top kind of wanting to pop up because you have a magnet right on top, you could use little alligator clips to hold that in place so that it works well for you. So here's a trick to using your flip fold inserts and adding magnets that I absolutely love, is you pop your other magnet right on top, both sides. And then we are going to bring this one, add some glue to this, just a little bit at this point. And we're going to go ahead and make sure everything is symmetrical on the bottom. And we're going to just press that down. It doesn't have to be super, super accurate, but what I'm doing right now is marking my spot with glue. Okay, so there you've got that little spot. Now we're going to peel this magnet off, and here's the thing too, when you put this down, make sure that the side with glue is the side that it keeps pressed down this direction. That makes that you don't switch it to the wrong side of your magnet. So on this bottom flap, we are going to let's see, I'm trying to find the paper that's for this. Okay, this one right here. Here we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and just cover this sheet right away with my paper. Has this been helpful so far, seeing how this one comes together? This is a technique that has never been shown, how to combine two of the flip fold craft E inserts. Now, you might be having these two packets and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Uh-oh, what happened here? I have a whole chunk of magnets that that's not fun when that happens. You might have the big insert of E. You can do this exact same technique. You'll just have a larger album, which is brilliant. And you'll just cut your papers larger. And Nancy, you said your mouth doesn't agree with your mind a lot, right? Sometimes stuff flies out and you're like, wait, what did that mean? Did I say what I think I did? Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Okay, so just make sure that everything is lined up. Put your glue on the top for a marker. Bring this down, just make sure everything is symmetrical and lined up on the side. You've got square corners. And see how that perfect little dot is down on the bottom? Yay. Okay, I got an extra, oh, there we go. Got an extra magnet. I got magnets flying around my condo right now. They are very super reactive and doing their job today. They're like, I'm gonna stick to anything and everything that's magnetic. Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and glue this piece on top. Now, you can use any of the papers that you like. There's lots of different fun designs. The PDF is very beautifully laid out with all the measurements for you. Cassie, she's an in-house graphic designer. She does the beautiful job of putting that PDF together each month so that you have an amazing reference for you when you go to create it. So now all you have to do is just bring those flaps down and we'll cover the tops. So you could put the dream on this side. You could go with whichever way you like. But I'm going to go ahead and bring that over here. Now when you're cutting out using that decorative die piece from the Ornate Border and Dies, when you're cutting out your decorative pieces as well, you can cut out multiples at a time as long as you're comfortable with it not moving on you when you're running it through the machine. So if that's a time saver for you, go ahead and do that. Jade, you said you put your magnets in different places in your craft room so they don't fly together. Yes. They're like, they need to be separated because they are buddies. I'm going to put them away so I don't have them continuing to fly around my tabletop here. Okay, so we're ready to decorate the opposite side. So the great thing about this is when you first start with the Craft Insert E and you've never done it before, you might have that feeling of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I feel like I don't know A from B, C from D, because it looks so overwhelming. But when you just kind of like just watch this a couple times, do those flips and folds, before you know it, you have this beautiful book that's coming together. But in the beginning, when you're learning something new, that can really be a challenge at times. So you have those two beautifully decorated. I had a piece that I put down in the spine. This is a little butterfly piece. If your spine is wider, just cut this piece a little bit wider, totally up to you. But I sponged that as well, so I'm just going to glue that in right away while I have that out. This one's a little bit narrower because it has this spine's just a little under an inch. There we go. How pretty is that? Shanna, you said you're so enjoying the live class. I'm a great teacher. Thank you. You're so kind. You gals are awesome. I think that what makes the class so awesome is you guys' interaction to the class. Okay, so what is next? Our next step is adding all the decorative pieces to these flaps. Now, these flaps on both sides are pretty easy to do. Once you have, just choose the papers that you love the best, and you can start gluing those, attaching them down. I'm just going to show you the original one real quick. Who's excited to get to the vellum? I'm like, I love putting together this mini album. It's absolutely gorgeous, but I am like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to decorate this and show you the vellum tricks. Leslie, you said you are planning on working on the album during the class, but decided to enjoy a glass of wine and watch first. That's awesome. You are relaxing and having a good time. That's what crafting is all about. You get to relax, do something fun, and enjoy the process. So this is the left side, this is the right side, so you can choose to do whichever one you want first. However, whichever pictures you want to add, totally up to you. I'm going to add mine not in a particular order. I'm just going to make sure that I have my sponge papers out correctly. So These are all cut to 4 and 5.5 inch strips. So we're going to go ahead and add these. Now these were cut the exact same way. I just cut my piece of paper, and then if you just measure that 1.5 inches, or you could always layer them on top here and just make a mark where that die blade ended on the end as well. So you could totally do that too. You could just lay this on top and make it even with where the die stops. So whichever way works easiest for you is what we want you to focus on. Patricia, you said the flowers are so pretty. You know what? Do you guys want to see something beautiful? This is completely off topic to what we're doing right now, but look at this. This beautiful bouquet just arrived today. It's made by Rajni. It's all vellum flowers, and I'm going to give you close-ups once we go into the vellum, but it's stunning. Different flowers, different colors, so beautiful. These flowers could be used in just a bouquet like that or on a card. So, can't wait to show you that. So we're going to go ahead and glue these little pieces onto the flaps. So we're going to get started. I'm just going to do the left side today because that will give you the basics. We want to make sure that we get you all the techniques today. So we'll just do the left side, and then you can finish off the right side using the exact same technique. Does that sound good? So I'm going to go ahead and do this piece, then just flip that up. And you can do the piece on the opposite side. Carol, you said these mini albums are so pretty and scattered through your living area. Your living area sounds like a magical place to be. Jade, you said thank you for sharing those flowers. Yes, I can't wait to show you more about those. Okay, so I'm just going to pull forward this top flap. One thing that you'll want to make sure you do, hang on a second, I'm just going to pull this one back off so I can match it with the bottom layer. As you're doing these, you might see what works best for you, whether it's putting on the top flap or the bottom one, but I like to make sure that my flaps measure up on the front and the back. Sometimes it can be a slight variation just by the way if something moved when I was die cutting them out, but okay, so but when you lay them back to back, if these are symmetrical, they should go on symmetrical on the top as well. So we're going to go ahead and just glue this down. We'll do all 4 of the flaps. On the left, Tina, you said you did the poppy album. Yes, that was the one side. So if you would do the technique that you did at the class in you said you did it in Arizona. And then if you want to do them 2 together so you can bring them together like this, you could do 2 and you have a double mini album instead of just the one side. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and bring this to the top. And see how that just, you can kind of move that around a little bit if you need to. There we go. How fun is that? I love seeing this come together. So we'll add this one in the front. When you're doing the flaps in the front, just make sure that your images are turned in the right direction. That's the only thing I kind of like to look out for when I'm doing this. So thank you for encouraging each other. I see that one of you, I think I missed the question, Mary Lynn. Nancy, thank you for encouraging Mary Lynn. I know sometimes it takes a couple of tries, especially when it's something new or it's your first time in the class. It's like, oh, wait a minute, how does this work? Or especially if you're having some technical issues too. So, okay. Carol, you said you have a huge container of paper flowers in your living room and you will have to make some of vellum. Yes, the vellum just really takes it to the next level. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's so stunning. And it looks like you spent hours creating them, which is fun. They're super delicate. There's just something so special about those flowers. Okay, so this one is a little bit on the long side. So what do you do when it's long? You're going to go ahead and trim that off. So I'm just going to show real quick. For some reason it was pushing off. I don't know if it's the way I layered my flaps, but if you have that, just trim it off. It looks like I need to do about a 1/16 of an inch. No worries if that happens and you die cut it off a little bit or too long. You can always trim up the opposite end. And typically I would go back and sponge that end again, but for the purpose of time today, we won't do that. Hey Christy, you said you're looking forward to seeing me at the convention tomorrow in Port Huron. I can't wait to see you. Are there any of my other crafting friends that will be at the convention in Port Huron tomorrow? Yes, I can't wait. It'll be so much fun. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and glue this butterfly on the bottom flap. Doesn't that look gorgeous? This butterfly is in the background of the paper. It's the same size as the stamped image, and it's beautiful. If you layer a vellum butterfly on top of it, absolutely stunning. It kind of creates that bold background, but when you add the vellum on top, it tones it down, makes it super, super stunning and beautiful. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this last one on the back, and we have those decorated. Okay, so this one, we have the flap overhanging just a little bit, so we'll bring this up a little bit further. So I would go back and you could add some strips of creative papers like these little butterfly borders on the top here. You can also add little strips in here just to cover that brown piece if you wanted to. And then you can just bring these down. And in the beginning, this kind of wants to stand up because it hasn't been folded down so much. But you can go ahead and just kind of crease that some more. And with the more it gets open and closed, the more it's going to stay flat. So this side, you'll do the exact same way. We have the measurements in there for you and how you can decorate that, which papers I used for the right-hand side. Leslie, you said you'll have to make a matching vase to go along with the vellum bouquet. That would be amazing. Belinda, you asked if I'll be in Houston at CKC. I'm so sorry I will not be at that one, but we'll have a team of amazing people there. Benjamin, Andrea, and Jennifer will be there. They're excited to come see you, so you'll have lots of fun. So our next step with this is we're going to add the flaps for the bottom, and then we'll decorate the flaps on the side, and we'll get to making those beautiful vellum flowers. So the bottom, again, is just those beautiful papers on each side. So when I'm adding these, I really match the outside paper that I glued down. So if my craft piece, let's just move this up a little bit further. If my craft piece is a little bit shorter, it's okay. I'll just bring this down, just match that up perfectly, and you're good to go. Janie, you said you love your beautiful bracelet. It matches your outfit. Thank you. Actually, one of my crafting friends gave that to me. It was such a thoughtful gift. I was so excited. She showed up for a class and she gave it to me. I was completely shocked. It actually has the word, has heart and then felt on it. Isn't that stunning? I think crafters are the best people in the whole wide world. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we have these decorated. You know how to do these on the side. And then we're going to focus on the outer flaps, which are really, really beautiful. So we'll go ahead and this one has the magnet in it. So typically when you close this, you'll bring this in next. You'll bring this up and then you'll bring the tops down. So that's how you close this one, preferably. But you can, there's different ways that you can close that. So are you gals ready to get started decorating the sides? So I know there's a lot of pieces, so many different pieces in here. We have these border dies that were beautifully cut out. How awesome is that? I'm going to share some tricks and techniques with that. With this, these papers were cut out. These are the inside panels, left and right. The large one is 8 3/8 by 3 1/2, and then this one is cut to 2 1/2 by 8 3/8. So those are the sizes. So it's basically this piece just cut apart, so it's on the opposite sides. So you'll see that on the outside here. Let's bring this flap up so you can see this a little bit. So you'll see that the big pieces are on the left, on the front and the back, and you'll have the front and the back here as well. So we're going to add the decorative lace piece first and then cover it with the paper. Okay, so when you work with this die, you might notice that it's a little bit shorter than the width that you need for the album. So this die is, let's see, this die is 6.75 inches. So there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could cut it out once, lay it down and continue cutting if you're confident doing that. But there is another way that we extended that, and that's what I'm going to show you today to make that really large border. There's actually a seam, a piecing. If you've done quilting or something like that, you might have done this before. So what we did is we took two pieces and we overlapped them. So we have one piece down here, and then we just glued that and overlapped it. So this is overlapped by like one scallop piece. So when it comes together in the middle, if you just take one full scallop, interlock that, you'll have that border connected. Patricia, you said, yes, it is hard to cut and cover the beautiful papers, right? I know, that is so difficult to do. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and just add some quick glue. I love the Dries Clear glue with the metal tip. It's beautiful for intricate dies like this. It makes gluing them together so much easier. You have time to move it around, and it's an extra strength glue. So you have those glued together, and then one thing that, you know how you have the raw edge of the die that's kind of rough on the end or the edge? If you don't want to have that exposed and you want to have a beautiful die cut edge on both sides, go ahead and glue another border on the opposite side, okay? So if you wanted to do that, we used a total of, let's see, we had 8 borders, so you'll have 2 long ones like this. And if you want it to be nice and no rough edges, just go ahead and attach another border on the opposite side and just glue that together. Does that make sense? If it does, give me a yes and we'll continue on with that. Mary, you said great idea. Yes, if you're getting a buffering donut, I would actually hit refresh. Yes, Jay, that is a great tip. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Okay, so once you have those glued together, we're going to add those to the sides of our album. The next step is, where was that placed, right? Okay, so that was placed on the outer edge of that wide flap that opens from the left side, and it was on the flap on the right hand side, okay? Now you'll notice that this one is tucked in a little bit further so that it doesn't go over the score line in here. So just make sure when you're placing yours that yours doesn't overlap. So the way that we'll do that to make sure that it doesn't extend too far is we're going to add that to the top here. So when this flap is closed on the outside, we haven't done any decorating on it. This is the flap coming in from the left. Lynn, you said you like the idea of doing 2 together. It strengthens the lace work. Yes, exactly. It makes a very sturdy piece. So anytime you have a very intricate die that you want it to be dimensional, but you don't have the pop dots to even make it dimensional, that's also a great tip, is to add 2 or 3 on top of each other. So I'm just adding glue on the side and popping my die on top. Now when I pop this die on top, this is going to give me the measurement, and I can see, okay, this is not too wide because it's not. So I have that, and I'll make sure it looks even to me. And I'm going to just bump this down a little bit so that it starts, whoops, I'm off the camera right now. Here we go. So I just bumped that down and I made sure that it's even, okay? So I'm going to just kind of have that laying on the side here and let that dry. And we'll move over to the right-hand side. Okay, so on the right-hand side, it's not super picky about the width because this flap is shorter. So we're going to go ahead and just glue that in. Now while that is drying, if you're ready to move on to the next step, You could go ahead and just lock that in place with adding the decorative paper on top. So that's the decorative paper I was showing you earlier. Oops, I had a little glue splat that I need to clean up. That's what I get for gluing over my project. Okay, so I'm just gonna wipe that off real quick. Okay, so we'll just lock that border right in place. So that's the right-hand side. Yes, Christine, that makes the decorative border so much sturdier. It's like a kind of like, it feels like a piece of cardboard going down the side. So it's very, very beautiful and elegant, and gets so sturdy, and it doesn't feel like flimsy, like, oh my gosh, this is gonna get torn up when I'm flipping through those beautiful photos. So that's locked into place, and you can go ahead and cut off that strip on the side if you like. I didn't cut mine off quite straight, but that's okay. We can go back and do that a little bit later once that's dry. Okay, so we have the inside flap to decorate, and then we're ready to move on to the outside cover, and we'll be starting with our vellum flowers soon. Who's excited about the vellum embellishments? Patricia, you said you love the idea of putting two together for strength and no raw edges. Yes, isn't that a beautiful idea? So as we go through, I love when you tell me when you have those aha moments. So have there been any other aha moments that you've had, like those moments of like, oh my gosh, like I never thought about that. That's amazing. That's what the online classes are about, because when we do those 15-minute Facebook Lives or those videos on YouTube, we don't have as much time to just go into that detailed crafting technique. So the fact that you invest into learning and just enhancing your skills of crafting says a lot about you as a crafter. You're not the crafter that's just like, oh, I don't have the time, or I am getting these products but not using them, because that's what we're all about. Our team internally is, internally, did I say internally or eternally? Internally, is committed to not just selling you a bunch of products. We're like, hey, who can we help be successful in crafting today? Because we want you to have fun with it. So we are finished with the inside. Obviously you want, I'm like, this needs to be decorated on the right hand. That kind of bugs me. Gail, you said you're very excited about the vellum flowers. Yay, I'm too. So bring this up, bring this down. That actually needs to be trimmed a little bit on the top. So if you have anything that's sticking out the side of the craft, that can, so we'll just clip that off a little bit. There we go. See how beautiful that just wants to hook onto that die. And that is all together, and the only thing you have left is just the outside and the spine. So when we go to do the front and the back cover, it might feel a little bit off in the beginning, like because you're just kind of bringing that together, you're kind of pushing it together. It's kind of getting its own shape at the moment. So the front spine and the back spine, you have 4.5 by 8 3/8, two of those, and then the spine is cut to 3.5 by 8 3/8. So the spine is a little bit wider. The green piece is a little bit wider. So you can do the spine on this side. That's going to be put down first. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the glue. We're going to add a covering of glue to the spine first, just to make sure that we have that well covered. Now, this is totally up to you. You could put score lines into the spine or the paper that's going over the spine right away if you wanted to, but I decided to not do that. I'm going to let it do its own creasing around it. Sometimes if I add a score line first, I have to measure. I struggle a little bit more. So you have glue on this side there, and then I'm just going to lay that to the side a little bit. I'm going to lay this upside down. I don't want to get glue all over. So you have the glue on the spine, and then I'm going to also put glue around the outer edges of the paper that is covering the spine. So I have glue in all sections. Okay, so you can just kind of start in the middle, just put that over the top, and then wrap that around. Now it might feel a little bit awkward at first, but it's kind of like wrapping that book cover. And if you wanted to do the score line first, you can totally do that, but just kind of wrap that around the back. Jade, you said the ribbon is beautiful. Can we get that at Heartfelt Creations? We don't sell any ribbon. A good ribbon spot is like May Arts has a lot of good ribbon. Oftentimes even going to like Hobby Lobby and Michael's, I'll find some ribbon that I like there. So my ribbon is typically just like something something that I get like at odd and end places. So do you see how that just kind of wraps right around there? You have a nice curvature and you're ready to put that. Now just make sure before you put the cover on that you're putting it right side up. So your top, make sure you have your top. You don't want to be like one of my design team members that was like, oh my gosh, I was making this and I had decorated the inside. This was a flip fold album and she had done the cover completely upside down. She's quite devastated. I'm sure none of you have done that, but I have done that too, where I've done something upside down and I'm completely devastated. So I'll just lay that on top and you've got that. So the paper really like is so beautifully done. This is the Butterfly Dreams. This is an all-time favorite of mine. It has a nice spring palette, beautiful color combination that really goes well with so many different occasions and photos, especially for summer. You could do it for a wedding. You could do it for, you know, fun kid pictures, fun outdoor vacations. Okay, so we've got that on there. Okay, so we've got that. Beverly, you said, oh wow, I never thought of that as a way to cover my spine. That's a beautiful way to cover that, isn't it? So we have some embellishments that we had added on the inside yet. If we have time, we'll get back to that at the very end. But we're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about vellum and all that fun stuff. So what I'm going to lay my album over here and we'll have you have a close-up look of the vellum while I switch gears. How many of you found that very helpful to learn how to make a mini album very easily with the craft insert? If that helped you, if you could pop in the comments, yes, that helped tremendously. You're excited to make your own. That would be amazing. Okay, so we're going to pop this in. We're going to switch gears a little bit. With this, we're going to use inks. This is where you'll grab your vellum, your heat embossing tool, your groove flower shaping tools, your sponge daubers, your dries clear, glue, the fine metal tip. You have that for the album. We're also going to be using that throughout the vellum flowers as well. This is where you want to have your hot glue gun ready and all that good stuff. So we're going to take another close-up look at these and then we'll get started. I like to also have a wet wipe that is not very wet or a microfiber cloth. That's what we're going to use with the vellum. You'll see I have some ink colors on this already. You will want to grab your peony stamps and dies if you haven't stamped those yet. We have the frost white, not frost white, but it's an embossing powder that's white by Ranger. I'm using the frost white color box ink and my tidy tray. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to stamp and emboss. I don't know how many of you, some of you might be super familiar with that. Others of you might be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do that. But this is the vellum that we're using. So this is where the vellum questions come in. So we are going to cover quite a bit. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Belinda, you said you don't feel intimidated making an album. Yes, Joanne, you said it was very helpful. Gail, you said it was very nice to see you covering and making the inside. Thanks for the specifics. You're very welcome. Patricia, you said you can't wait to make yours. You love Heartfelt Creations. Virginia, you said you ordered a bunch of the flip folds. Haven't used one yet. We'll try it now. Yes, that's exactly what we like to use these online classes for, is not to just have you have a bunch of stuff, but you're taking those items and using them and making something beautiful. Okay, so to use the vellum, I am using the 180 GSM from Rajni Chwala. Now, I know some of you have been wondering what the difference is between this and the normal vellum that we have. The difference is the one that we have typically carried in the past that you'll see online that's less expensive is 110 GSM, which is a lot lighter weight vellum. This vellum, you'll notice a huge difference. Actually, if you have our 110 weight vellum plus the 180 GSM, you will notice a huge difference. This vellum is is a lot thicker. It's not quite as transparent, and you have a lot of you have a little bit more durability. So when you're creating flowers, you don't have to worry about them. I don't know, like, how do you say it? Them breaking as much. That's what I'm wanting to say with that. So we'll get started by just using some of our ink and embossing it. So I like to do white on white if I'm stamping with white ink and white embossing powder on vellum. It just makes that it is more crisp and you have a whiter image. Does that make sense? And I see one of you has some technical issues. Jade, thank you so much for trying to help out. If you are having technical issues, call in. Our team is waiting, standing by, and they'll help you figure that out. Sometimes it's just a technical issue on your end that they can help find a solution for. I just realized something. I always like to have a stamp mat pad underneath me when I'm stamping, and I didn't. It's okay. It's stamped well, but I typically like to do that. So you'll see that you have a nice crisp image. I'm just embossing this with the White Ranger embossing powder. I find this embossing powder is really fine. It sticks very well with vellum. So we're just going to sprinkle that over the top. Flick that off. Now, when I first started using vellum, I was quite young, and I did not have an embossing gun. So this is just a little behind the scenes story. I did not have an embossing gun. In fact, for those of you that don't know, I grew up in an Amish family, so we didn't have electricity either. So what do you do if you don't have an embossing gun, you don't have electricity, and you want to emboss on vellum or even cardstock? Well, what we did is we used our kerosene lamps, and we held our vellum on top. Now, there's one thing that I learned is don't burn vellum. I scorched many papers and vellums, but I'm using the heated embossing tool. This is a little bit more of a light heat, but you can use stronger heat tools. Just hold your heat gun further away based on how hot it is. So this is going to be a little bit, this heat gun's not super loud, but it will make a little bit of noise. So Susan, you said hold it over the fireplace. Jade, you said blow hot air. What did you do? Yes, so we used a kerosene lamp, and we held it on top of the chimney. So think kind of like a candle with a chimney, but it was a kerosene lamp, which worked quite well. So when you're embossing with this, you'll see it turn pretty quickly, especially if your heat gun is pretty hot. So Cynthia, you said you love the butterfly paper. It's beautiful. Yes. In fact, when you order that, I actually would recommend getting a couple. Because you're going to use quite a bit making this album, plus you'll want to use this with your cards that you're creating too, because with the vellum technique that I'm sharing, you're going to be able to use this on so many cards, creating those beautiful butterflies and layering on top of the butterflies that are in the background paper of the butterfly dreams. Nancy, you said you always use the frost white under any white embossing powder. Yes, it just makes it be so crisp, white, and clean. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of testing because Carol, you said I've come a long way. Yes, I have electricity. I love it. Okay, so with this, I just want to make sure everything's heat embossed. Okay, so here we go. When you work with this, the next question is, what kind of inks do I use with vellum? What kind of inks work? How do I blend? What happens using different kinds of inks? So we recommended an oxide ink today. If you haven't used the Distress Oxides, we actually don't even carry these on our website. But when you look in the back of an ink pad, it tells you what they are. The Distress Oxides are a combination of dye and pigment ink that is a kind of a fusion that reacts to water. But these were pretty colors that we chose. We're going to be using those in just a little bit on the flowers and stuff. But what I wanted to show first is how other inks react to vellum versus Distress Oxide, so you can see for yourself what you like. So I am going to this is the Lilac Posies, and this is Memento. So we're just going to take the ink pad, and Jade, you said, isn't that heat heat it much hotter than an embossing gun. You know, it's funny you asked. I thought it was a little bit less heat, but I might be wrong. Maybe it's just it doesn't have as much noise. I'm actually not sure, but that's one that I kind of like for the noise factor of it. But I just adjust my the width that I hold it away from my vellum just based on how hot it is. If it's too hot, you will see it will actually kind of warp, and so I kind of test it with that a little bit. So this was the Lilac Posies in Memento ink that I just put on top. The next color I'm using is Dark Peony in the chalk. So what I'm going to show you is just how these kind of blend on vellum, so you can see for yourself what inks, that a lot of inks can be used. This is the archival ink. So we have 3 different inks that you can see how it's going to how it's going to work. So Carol, you said the oxides go on velvety. Yes, they go on very smoothly, very velvety. When you go to blend them, now I am using, this is just like a Norwex microfiber cloth. I found that I like using it. Some people recommend using baby wipes that aren't super wet. So you can test out for yourself what you like using. You can kind of control how much blending you do. So you can see how if I use this, how that fades out. I can literally pick up that color and blend it out. Do you see how that just fades out? Now you can press a little bit harder and just blend all that color. So when you go over the top, it really lightens it up. You see that? And then this was the chalk. I must have gotten some of my color elsewhere, so make sure you don't do that. Well, if you're coloring flowers that are already cut out, it doesn't really matter. So I typically, you could color these before you cut them out or after. So you can see that the chalk ink I really, really like. I think it blends very well, and it holds a very vibrant color. So I felt like I like the chalk and the archival the best. Memento was probably my number 3 favorite. So of all the ones that I tested, I thought the chalk and the archival were very good, along with the Distress Oxides. My Memento was my least favorite. So this is the archival, also fades out. You can get that color really blended without, the harder you press, the more that color diffuses. Leslie, you said chalk inks dry very quickly. Yes, so you'll see that the chalk ink dries more quickly and that color is a little bit more vibrant. If you, shoot, I don't have a sponge dauber for my chalk ink right now, so I'm going to actually, I don't think I've done this before, but we'll try this. Are you guys okay with just trying something? We're just going to go in a circular motion on top of this Sweet Peony. And we're going to see what happens. This is direct to ink pad to vellum. I don't typically recommend that because it is a little bit harder on your ink pad surface. But just for testing, you typically apply it with a sponge dauber. Let's see how this just fades out. See how pretty that color is? Now, I don't know about you, but that is pretty dang sweet. See that? How cool is that? So Chris, I haven't used the Distress Oxide yet. That's what we're going to use on all the flowers. So I just wanted to show you some other inks that you can use. So I didn't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I can only use Distress Oxides. I wanted you to see how you can also use your chalk ink pads if you have those. You can use the archival inks. So in my lineup of testing other inks outside of the oxides, I like the chalk ink, I like the archival ink, and Mementos came in at number 3. Those did not move as much because that's a very permanent ink as well. For some reason, archival did okay. So we're going to put that aside. Did you like seeing the testing of that? So that's the basics of it, and now we're going to go into coloring these for real. So I have mine all stamped, and we're going to go into coloring them and having some fun with that. So with these, I'm going to grab a piece of paper I can use on my backdrop. We have a beautiful, beautiful butterfly. This butterfly is absolutely stunning, and you can adjust the colors, okay? So you have this one. You have these 2 that we're going to color. So you'll have a total of 3 butterflies. They're trying to hang on to each other. They're best buds. Okay, let's just get them untangled. And we're going to color the butterflies first. How does that sound? Okay, so when you color with these, you might even want to do 6 butterflies because they're so much fun to color. So we're going to kind of do a gradient color, 3 different colors. So I am going to start out with the Distress Oxide in the peacock feathers and use those. Nancy, you said testing the inks really helped, as that's one thing that you needed to know. Yay. So we're using peacock feathers first, and just a circular motion. Do you see how gorgeous that color is? Don't be afraid of just going over the top, and like that looks super bright, right? Okay, you'll see that this is super light. That's based on how hard I pressed to remove that ink. Isn't that crazy? Okay, we're gonna go into using the carved pumpkin distressed oxide, okay? So we're just gonna add a bunch of that right along the outer edges. Yay! And I don't really worry about like blending colors at this point, because you can really control that when you go back with your little, your blending. So you could do a wet wipe that's not super dry. I'm saying not super dry, that is not super wet. My microfiber cloth is actually pretty dry. So I'm going to do different variations of color on this butterfly. This one, carved pumpkin fall, is coming. Yes, unfortunately that means colder weather too. So I'm going to keep this one a little bit brighter, and we're going to use this one as the base. So we're going to, do you see how if I blend those colors, how, I hope you can see this. This is so fun. Okay, so that just like blends those colors together. And literally, if you're new to this, like, you don't have to be a colorist, you don't have to be a seasoned pro to do this. This just really beautifully blends together. So you can just blend those colors. Oops, let me pull this up so you can see it a bit. Okay, so we have, now if you wanted to make that lighter, let's do another butterfly. So this one's more bright, this one's a little bit lighter. That is all on how hard I rubbed when I did those, but I had equally colored them the same brightness originally. Lynn, you said, just think, sweaters and cozy fires, right? I know, I know. Okay, so we're gonna do that one more time. I can't wait for you to experience this. This is the funnest thing ever. You feel like this amazing artist and you didn't even spend much time. That's what we love about crafting, is you're gonna be able to create all these beautiful, beautiful projects using the vellum, and it looks absolutely exquisite, but it doesn't matter what your crafting skills are, you're gonna be able to do this. And this butterfly just showcases it beautifully. It's like, he's just fluttering by to say hello. Okay, so something about vellum and making pretty things that just makes you want to sing, and it just takes away, I don't know, the stresses of what's going on in the world around you, right? Okay, now there's another thing that can happen depending on when you're coloring. I'm gonna press this one just a little bit harder, but you can continue to shade that. Now, if you see that there is some coloring on your embossing powder, you can also spritz your microfiber cloth a little bit with water, and you'll see that that actually picks up a little bit more color. You see how that just picks that color up a little bit? So if you do a little bit of water, that lightens it up even more. Isn't it cool? Angie, you said you're surprised ink is not coming off. It must be because of the vellum you're using. In the past, my ink came off. Yes. So the vellum is absolutely amazing. And now we're going to go ahead and layer this butterfly together to create this exquisite butterfly that you will absolutely love. So that was used on this piece up here. So we sectioned it apart to create this beautiful butterfly. If you like to use it on a card, here's another beautiful way to use it on a card with a butterfly in the background, so it gives a dark silhouette, using the beautiful papers and using the delicate daisies on this one. Isn't that pretty, pretty, pretty? Okay, so for this one, we are going to start by, let me see, where did my other butterfly go? Uh-oh, I feel like I lost it. Maybe it will reappear. If anybody sees my butterfly, maybe he's underneath. Nope. Okay, well, we won't worry about him. We'll just, okay, so our first one, actually, we'll cut this one up first. So I'm just going to go around the scalp. We're going to cut this part off first, and we're going to layer him. So you don't have to, this is totally optional, by the way. It does make him look a little bit more real life. So this is the piece that we're cutting apart first. Okay, and then if you want to go ahead and just cut into a couple sections so we can kind of round that out, you can totally do that. And you know what? I'm just going to make do with this butterfly and this one as well. We're going to use this piece. We're going to recycle it, okay? So this is, you could use the 3 butterflies. My one disappeared for some reason. I think he just fluttered away. He's like, I don't want to be on that card. So we're going to go ahead and just trim off this rounded section right in here. I guess this saves you an extra butterfly that you can use on a different project, right? As long as yours doesn't disappear like mine. Kelly, you said what color ink was yellow one? Yes, I did not say that one. That one was called fossilized amber. So that's a very, very pretty one too. Okay, so you can go ahead and just cut in here as well. Just into each little crevice. And we're going to just layer him and have some fun with him. Now, you could experiment with different ways to layer him. It's totally up to you, but I'm just going to cut it off a little bit on the top here. Just cut in a little bit further and then right out here. Now, when you're doing this for the first time, you might be like, oh my gosh, am I going to cut the wrong way? I'm just going to follow the design of the butterfly, practice a little bit. I typically just kind of start doing some random cuts. And this is where, when we go to shape him, we're going to use let's see here. Okay, so we have this as the base. And I'm just going to cut his little tendrils off so we have a little bit of a base to glue him on. Okay, we won't really see much of that part, but we're going to use, this is the golf tools. These have a very slender tip. If you haven't seen these before, these have been added to the website more recently. Carol, you said you ink on top or underside of the embossed image. This one I did on top. So that is something that I did on these. On this vellum, it works better on the top. So I'm just going to roll his little wingtips right around this tool. Now, one thing to be aware of when you're using this tool is that this tool has a very sharp paper piercer end, so it can also kind of feel like a weapon in your hand. That's the thing I do not like about this tool, so when you're using it, be very, very careful. Carol, you were saying I was wondering how to use the golf tools. Yes. So this is one way. There's other ways too. That is for a different day and a different class. But yes, there's other ways to use them too. So we're going to wrap this around. Now you'll know how whoops, I just ripped that one apart. That's okay. We are going to, you know what made that happen? I cut in and I had a tear going this direction. So we're going to salvage that from another butterfly. So we're going to go ahead. I cut a little bit too close. And that's why we should have had 3 butterflies. There's a reason we do that stuff, right? Kelly, you said you have never done the golf tool. Yes, the golf tool was on back order and you're waiting for it to come in. If there's anything on back order that you're wanting, make sure that you click on the little bell icon of the items that are out of stock and you'll get the first notification when that's in so you can get that order. So I'm using this small piece and gluing this right on top of the main butterfly. So you see how that starts to add some dimension. It's a little bit harder to see sometimes with vellum on camera. Oh, that's a great idea, Lynn. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I love that idea because I've been kind of like, oh, this feels like a little weapon in my hand. Okay, so you'll just kind of fold this up and add your glue to the base. And then you can just go ahead and glue that down to the piece of the butterfly. You see how that just automatically starts to make that come out? Jade, you said you have the like button. Yes, this is where you hit the like button, right? Okay, so we're going to grab, I have an extra butterfly in here that I have not colored. Oh, here it is. It's just chilling on the side here. So this is the part that we're wanting. So we're just gonna cut in here. I was like, he must be hanging out somewhere. Sometimes I can't see the tree for the woods. Does that happen to you? So when you cut down here, just make sure it's not too close to any edge because you can rip it off if you do that. So we'll go ahead again and just Oh yes, a small cork on the end of the tool. You guys are so awesome. I love it. Laura, you said this is why you like the classes so much. Any mistakes you make, I will do many times over. But now I won't panic because you explain how to fix it. Yes, this is real life crafting. Like, and the truth is there's so many people that when they see me demo like for 15 minutes or, you know, just 20 minutes, they're like, oh, you make it look so easy. And like, does this and this never happen to you? I'm like, no, I have crafting mistakes that happen all the time. But honestly, some of my most creative things have come out of mistakes. And that's the thing that I'm always like, don't get scared when you have a mistake. Just stop a little bit, think, and say, okay, how could this be fixed? And you have an opportunity to embellish that and make something beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna get rid of all these little pieces that we will not use. And you have this beautiful, beautiful butterfly that is ready to be hanging out on the outside of your album. Oops, this is the wrong way. Here we go. So that will be hanging out on the outside of your album. You see that? But before we go into placement, we're going to make some of the flowers. How does that sound? So the flowers are created with some beautiful, beautiful peonies. You are going to have the sizes listed on your PDF on what sizes we use. This is these colors or these sizes for the large one. You can use the sizes of peonies that you like, or if you're making a bunch of flowers, that's great. This one I used 2 of the largest size of the peony paired with the second largest size, so there's 3 together on this one. And then you can use 3 of the same size on the next one and the following one. So the sizes are on the PDF on which ones we used and how many of those. I'm going to make one of the flowers today, and that flower is the exact flower that the technique we used for all 3. So I'm using 2 of the largest paired with the next size. And then for the next flower that you're doing, you're using 3 of the second largest size. Actually, let me show you this, and this would be so much easier for you. So when you're stamping, the largest flower is using 2 of this one and 1 of this one. And then the second size is using 3 of this one. Does that make sense? Eldine, you said some of your best cards have come from fixing mistakes. Yes, that is so true. Helen, you said, what is the yellow distress? Yes, it's the fossilized amber. So to color this, we are going to do the same thing we did earlier. We are going to use you could use the fossilized amber or the carved pumpkin. I'm going to use the carved pumpkin because I personally like having a little bit more color, texture, and dimension. So just go ahead and add that bright, rich color right over the top. And don't worry about shading it. This is so quick, so easy. You could even do this coloring before it's cut out, so you don't have to really mess with the edges. Totally up to you. So I would typically stamp a full sheet of vellum with all my flowers, color it, and when it's cut out, you're ready to go. Okay, so once that's done, grab your cloth. I'm going to use a little bit of the wet part. That also removes some of the yellow or orangish color that went over my embossing powder, but just kind of fade that out a little bit. And you can see how that just instantly just moves that color. The Distress Oxide ink also moves really beautifully, which you can see too, just based on how hard you press and all that good stuff. Jade, you said you'll be watching, so grab fast. Yes, the estimated date for the large sweet peony die. Yes, that one is coming in soon. It has been out of stock for a while, so that is exciting. So to go and shape this one, do you see, I'm going to bring this up close so you can see a close-up view in the camera, but you see how these flowers, vellum is shaped a little bit differently than like just putting it on the mat and using it roughly. So you'll see a lot of these flowers have a beautiful rounded edge. This is the sweet peony, the large sweet peony. This is the sunflower. Isn't that beautiful? And then this is the daisy. So all of these, if you just take 3 of the same size, pair them together, that's beautiful. The sweet peony, I like to do 2 of one size and then 1 in the center, the next size smaller. Helen, you said, what is a cloth? I'm using a Norwex microfiber cloth, but any microfiber cloth will use. It just kind of pulls that color off. Or if you have a wet wipe that is not super that is not super wet, that will work too. So I'm just using that tool, the golf tool, and wrapping it around those petals. And you'll just bend that. This vellum is more sturdy, so you don't have to worry about it tearing as easily as a lightweight vellum. So I'll just do that very quickly, just right around all those petals. It's actually called, I think, Jade, that was so close. It's Norwex, Norwex, yes, and Amazon has those, yes. They have different types of them. This is kind of a large. I actually think some people use them for napkins and just rewash them. I use them for a lot of stuff. It picks up glitter really well. It cleans up dust really easily. They're some of my favorite cloths. Like, I was introduced to them by Andrea, who, for those of you that took the last month's class, wasn't that amazing, the necklace class? Andrea has introduced me to so many great products. She's the one that actually gave me that class, or that cloth. There we go. So I'll do that on each one of them. So this is my basic shaping technique for the vellum flowers with the narrow petals. So that works very well. So your next step is grabbing, I'm going to cover the Distress Oxide inks. One thing, we have the little vellum lilac flowers. I colored those with the peacock feathers as well. So we are going to go ahead and add, my cloth is falling off my table. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to grab our little mat out of, our piercing mat out of the shaping kit. So tell me, what have you liked best so far about taking the class? I love sharing these tips and techniques with you. It's so much fun. And one of the things that we love to do to reward you for taking the class is to give you a special savings that you can purchase, that you can use to purchase some of your crafting favorites. So I have a special savings for you. This is something that we very rarely do, is giving you a free die with a purchase. So we are giving students today a free die with a $100 purchase when you enter code 47365. That expires on Saturday, August 4th. So if you know that you have some crafting goodies that you don't have yet, and you have a die that's on your list, that's an absolute must-have. It's very rare that we offer a free die with a $100 purchase. So make sure you take advantage of that. So are you guys ready to put that beautiful flower together and add the stamens to the middle? It's so much fun, and I have an easy way to add those shredded stamens in the middle of those flowers you've been seeing. So let's continue with this. I have, Christy, you said, I'm a great teacher. Thank you. Helen, you said you love everything about the class. Virginia, you said you love the vellum. Kelly, you said you're learning so much. Okay, here's another tip. When you are adding flower centers to the vellum, I like to make a wider pierced center, because I have a wide, kind of a lot of thread that's coming through. So I actually kind of cut an opening into the center. So make a hole that is actually pretty good size. If it's not large enough, that is okay. We can always go back and make it larger, because when you're first doing this, you're kind of learning how wide. But just kind of guess a little bit. The ones that are, the flowers that are smaller, kind of work towards a petal that is wide, so that you're not going off to like the side. Let me hold this up so you can see what I mean. So with this, you just make sure you're kind of going towards a petal instead of like off to the side where it can tear easier. So we're ready to add those flower stamens. So some of you may have seen this, some of you may not, but when I'm using the threaded stamens, a lot of people ask me, so how the heck do you get these little threaded stamens into the center of a flower easily? These are some great tips that Rajni taught me that I absolutely love. They're my absolute favorites, and are actually the same techniques that she used to make the flowers that you see in the vase, except she used a long green thin wire stamen to attach to the flowers, and I'll pull that up in a little bit later. So just keep that in mind as we're doing these. So take all your little stamens. I just pulled a bunch out of the pack. If you haven't used the threaded stamens yet, those come in a pack. called rock candy. These look good enough to eat, but don't eat them. You might have indigestion. But this is absolutely a fun pack that I use all the time. And I pair them a lot with our wired stamens too. So you'll grab these. Now take a piece of wire, just a small piece of wire. I am using a wire from one of our wire stamens. So just make sure that these are all kind of bunched up the same. Let's just clip off. So this is a wire. It's coated in white, so it doesn't look so wire-ish right now. But just take that wire and clip it right over your stamens. There we go. Floressa, you said, Emily, you make the vellum flowers look easy. You know, once you've done your 10th vellum flower, you're going to be like, Emily, you're going to come back to me and say, it is easy. That's the great thing. When you practice, 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 a lot of these look super complicated, but when you break it down, it's like, oh my gosh, I can do this. So, and Floressa, thank you for sharing your story recently. Tracy shared it with me, and she told me about your mom, and I shared it with the team, and they were so inspired by your story. So thank you for being part of our crafting family. So what you're going to do is, does this make sense? So you have these little stamens, and in the middle, I have this wire that is, so it's kind of like a needle and a thread, okay? So here's your needle, and then you have your beautiful flower stamens that are going to go right down the center of this flower. So you pull, pull, pull. Just be a little bit careful when all those threaded stamens are going down the center. If it splits on you the first time you're doing it, it is a-okay. We can always fix that if it happens to me. I'll show you how I fix it. Actually, I just typically hot glue gun it in. It's cool. This might tear. I don't know. No, it's not. Here we go. So you just pull it up. You can kind of pull those petals around, make them be a little bit circular if you want. And then once that's pulled up, I'll go for the second one. How cool is that? Floressa, you said, oh my gosh, right? You start seeing it come together. How fun is that? Ooh, Kathy, thank you for reminding me. With the vellum, this vellum actually, with this sturdy vellum and this embossing powder and the flour, it makes that it doesn't flake off as easily. And with the way we shaped it, did you notice that I didn't have much flaking at all? So that shaping technique of wrapping it around the stylus makes that you're not putting as much pressure down on your flower when you're creating it. So that makes that you don't have as much of that embossing powder flake off as well. So does that make sense? Thank you for bringing that up because I didn't really highlight that. So here we go. Here we go. We have the hot glue in there. Is there anything else that you have had questions about in the tips and techniques with vellum that you're like, oh my gosh, she hasn't covered this yet? Dorothy, you said you made it look so easy. Yes, it is easy. However, when you are doing your first one, it can feel super awkward because as you're pulling that threading through there, as you're making it go through the hole, like my first one I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to break. You know, you have all those feelings, but once you learn kind of how to work with it, how hard to put, and the truth is, your first one that you might make, it might break for you. But if it does, actually, maybe I should make this one break on purpose. If it does, just go ahead and wrap the flower around the thread and just glue it in with your hot glue gun. That's always what I do if I accidentally break it. This one just tore quite a bit larger hole, but it's on my large flower, so it's not as, it doesn't tear through. So I'm just going to pop another bit of my hot glue in there. Pull that up, and you have that beautiful, beautiful flower. How pretty is that? Now, before we go to layering this flower onto our album, we're going to go ahead and do something fun. I don't know if you've seen this technique yet or not, but we're going to add some glitter. This is totally an optional step, but I wanted to teach you this in case you like to learn some fun glittering techniques. But this is something that you have to cut. Whoops, I just popped my bouquet down. You want to make sure that you work pretty quickly on this. You can use the crystal glitter, or you can use the crystal clear from Rajni. That is more chunky. This is more fine. I'm going to do the fine glitter today. I hope this jar is open. Actually, it feels like it's a new one. Oh, it is new. So I'll just open that real quick. Okay, so what we're gonna do, if you want glitter on the embossed area, is what I want you to do is just take that heat gun and kind of heat that flower up. Carolyn, you said, can you use a hole punch to make a larger hole? If you have a long reach hole punch, you might be able to do that. Try it, see if you like it. Virginia said, oh yes, glitter, your favorite. Okay, so this technique, I am heating up the embossing powder. So what's going to happen? This glitter is going to attach to the embossing powder that was heated enough. So this is quite hot, but when I do this, you want to work pretty fast. Some areas might catch the glitter, some might not. This is a, do you see how that looks? So that just attached right to that embossing powder. Isn't that cool? And if you didn't get enough glitter in there because it wasn't hot enough, just go back, heat that up, test it out. This is kind of a new technique. If the glitter doesn't stick as well as you like, you can always go back with a dry as clear glue and you can add some glitter manually too. So, Shannon, you said it's a good idea to already have a bunch of flowers stamped and embossed and eat them later. Yes, absolutely. That's actually what I do, is if I were you, I would just sit down one evening, do a bunch of the flowers at one time, and then go back and do that, do the album and add those on there at your convenience. So you have that beautiful flower that is all ready to go and ready to add to your, so if I'm using one wire, I'll just take that wire off, I'll clip that, and you've got that all ready to add to your album. Okay, so we have one more step of this, and that is to create the leaves and add all these components to our album. So we're going to go a little bit longer today. I don't know where you're at with your day. If you are pressed for time and you have somewhere else you need to be, don't worry, we'll put this class into your account so you can watch it later at your convenience. Otherwise, just hang on for the ride, and we're going to finish up with this beautiful, beautiful album. It's funny how everything can kind of look like, oh wait, is this going to create something pretty? And we're in the stage where it's like everything comes together. It's kind of like the mess in the kitchen just before that beautiful cake is ready to make. So the leaves, let's talk about leaves. So we're going to switch from using the Distress Oxides to some archival inks. The archival inks I like to use, actually, you know what, I'm going to keep the fossilized amber because I want to highlight some of my leaves with that. So I'm using 3 different colors. Now with this, I like to use 3 different colors of greens and use different coloring techniques on the greens when I'm doing leaves. So you'll see that this leaf is a little bit darker green. This leaf is a little bit of a lighter green. So I'm going to show how I do kind of the basics of that. So, oh, I opened up all the green ink pads, so it's like, okay, which one is this one right now? Okay, so this one is the leaf green. So we're using the leaf green, fern green, and library green. So you can start out by just adding that color on first, just kind of that base color of the leaf green. Have you done a lot of leaves before? I like to do different textures. Now, for some of you might already know this, some of you may not, but we came out with the most beautiful leaf set and the most beautiful leaf die set. So it does the shaping for you, or leaf mold and die set. So the mold does the shaping for you. Okay, so just kind of that quick coloring over these leaves. I'm gonna go do 2 different greens on each of these leaves so you see some different variety with them. So the base color, I'm not super picky. I want to do a little bit more green here. We're going to switch out to using leaf green next, or not leaf green, it's the fern green, and add just a little bit darker color in there. You see how that just darkens that up just a little bit, so it gives it a 2-tone color. So that is a great way to just get a little bit more of a color in there. So you have that 2-tone. And then for the last leaf, we're going to go in and add some library green. Okay, so that is a lot darker. That's more like your Christmas green, more like your rose bush green. Tara, you said the new leaf mold and stamp and die are fantastic. The mold does an amazing job. Yes, the detail of that is absolutely insane. It's like I can't even shape a leaf like that, much less spend all the time getting a leaf to look like that. We're going to switch to the fossilized amber and just add a little bit of that yellow touch around the edges. Do you see how that just kind of brightens that up, makes it look a little bit aged? That's even fun to do after it comes out of the mold. So I'm going to send one of these leaves through the mold so you can see how that looks. I'm going to do the one that I finished coloring. We're going to pop these inks on the lids so I don't mix these up. Have any of you done that? Mixed up your ink pad lids and you're like, oh, wait a minute, wrong ink color. Okay, so we're going to run this through the mold. For those of you that have never used a mold before, this is like a magical flower shaping or leaf shaping. So this is your classic leaf mold, beautiful, beautiful mold that is absolutely stunning. I'm just using one of the leaf designs in here. This other leaf comes from the classic rose stamp and die and got shaped in that mold. Exact same process as what I'm saying. I'm going to do just a really, really light water mist. I don't like to do much on these leaves because they have, you could do 2 at a time too. I'm just going to do 1 today because I want an extra deep crinkle in it. And I want you to see the detail of this. So I just pop this into the mold. Joanne, I'm wondering if the molds can work for vellum too. Personally, I don't like using the using vellum in the molds. Vellum is just more delicate, so I like to use the vellum more on the molds. But if you wanted to try it out, see how you like it, you could always do that. But the molds are definitely designed more for your paper because it gets that intricate detailed molded design. Vellum is just a very different medium, so I don't personally like it with that. So do you see how beautiful that is? I'm going to do just one little thing. Once that comes out of the mold, if you just go hit that tips of that creases with that fossilized amber or whatever color you're wanting to accent it with, it's so pretty, and it just highlights those accents of those leaves. Isn't that gorgeous? Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, so we have some leaves shaped. You should have 5 of the classic rose leaves, and then you should have 3 of these all shaped. You could do 2 at a time, 1 at a time, whichever you want. So we have those pieces ready, and then we have those little little lilacs as well that you can add, and we're ready to add the finishing embellishments onto the album. Who is ready and excited for that? So pull out your album and we will add these pieces. So I know somebody had asked, where does the ribbon, oops, shoot, I forgot, I don't have my ribbon with me. Let me just double check, maybe I do. No, here it is. I missed my little packet. Okay, so we are going to add these decorative pieces to the background first, and then we're going to add this decorative piece to the back. That is what is hinging the ribbon onto your album. So that's what's going to go on first, is that ribbon. So you can make the ribbon as long or as short as you like, but I have 2 strands here that I'm just going to cut in half. So when Nelda, you said, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, you said, do you use the rose leaves in the mold? The rose leaves, yes, those actually match the classic rose mold. So that would go with the classic rose. So if you have that mold, that would work in there. So I'm just using the hot glue and gluing the ribbon on the front. And then we're going to go ahead and attach these little guys. This comes from, if you don't have this die yet, this one is used all the time with our design team members. It's from the decorative medallion die. We're using this piece. There's 2 different pieces. You use your green and your white, and we'll go ahead and just glue this down. You'll have one that's kind of sticking out the side a little bit more towards the bottom, and then we'll have one that is a little bit higher and on the opposite side. So you'll just bring that up to the top and kind of offset it, something similar to that. So you can kind of place it to what you design. Most of this is going to be covered. You'll flip this around and you'll hot glue some of your ribbon on the back. Yes, Carolyn, you said you would love to have your leaves made with vellum so they match the flowers. You could absolutely do that. If you do that, you'll just want to shape your leaves manually with the tool instead of the mold if you do that. But yes, you could absolutely use that. So you'll go ahead and add this to the back and add your other decorative piece on top. And when you glue those together, just use your dry as clear glue. I typically just go around the outer edges and add just a little bit of glue, and that will stick well with that. So you'll have that on the back, which looks very pretty, and you have those ribbons that you can do that. So, okay. Maybe I missed the question. I'm trying to kind of read some of your questions as I go along. So you've got that ribbon, you've got that, and you're ready to start placing. Now, what I would highly recommend that you do first is pop on your large flower and your butterfly, and then you fill in with the rest of the flower. So that kind of gives you a base to start with. So go ahead and use your hot glue gun and place in your large flower first. And we'll go ahead and glue that butterfly on. He looks like he's ready to take his spot on this album. He flies off the page just a little bit. If you don't want that, you could just move him in a little bit further. Totally up to you. See how pretty that is? So that is kind of the first layering. Judy, you said, what color green cardstock? The green cardstock comes from the paper collection, the Butterfly Dreams. So when you're looking through your PDF, you'll see, I said cardstock, it's actually the paper that's within the Butterfly Dreams. It has a light pattern to it, but it looks pretty green just from the camera. So you'll go ahead and add the second flower to the top. Just clip off the extra string that's on the base, and you can add that second one in there. So I am going to, so you have that second one, we'll just kind of tuck that into the side. Some of yours might just look a little bit different just based on how you do it. Now you see this bouquet over here. The way we made the original flowers, Rajni did these the exact same way. The only thing that she did differently is she used a green wire and kept it long as she made this bouquet. So you could have a lot of strings of bouquets like this, but I'm going to, you can also use it to use it just as something that you can harvest flowers for your projects. So you could do that as well. So I have another small one that I'm going to use. This one has a little bit different stamens in the center. Those are the little beaded thread ones. So this is off of the bouquet. So we'll just go ahead and add this right in here to the side. This is a little bit smaller, so you can test out which ones you want. And then you can go ahead and start tucking in your leaves. Now, we told you to cut out 5 of the small leaves. This comes from the Classic Rose Stamp Die and Mold. That's what we're using from that one. And then this comes, actually let me show you that so that makes sense. Or do I have that one? So let's see. I don't have that one for some reason. Yes, I do, right here. So that is the leaf from this stamp set that goes with the Classic Rose. The butterfly that we used is the Fluttering Butterfly from the Butterfly Dreams collection. Okay. Susan said, oh yes, make a vase full of flowers and use as needed for projects. Yes, so you can have that beautiful vase in your top room and then just use it as needed. So next, you're going to go ahead and just cut these leaves apart however you prefer. Typically, I just start out placing leaves. I'm not super picky about how I cut them apart. You can always pull some away from each other if you want. I'm going to just clip this apart randomly. This is not the exact same way as the original one. I always place my leaves differently each time, just based on how my flowers are positioned, the size of my flowers, and all that fun stuff. So we'll go ahead
and add these in next. And then I'll use some of these leaves as finishing accents. How pretty, pretty, pretty is that? Judy, you said you missed the wire part when you were putting the stamens together. Do we need floral wire? You don't need floral wire for this project. If you have the wired stamens, just any wire that you have would work well. If you wanted to do a bouquet like I showed, you'd want to have the real florist wire that is long. But just a small piece of wire from like a floral wire stamen would work well. So I'm going to pluck this leaf in here. And you can just continue to add those leaves. I'm going to hold this up in just a little bit. Lynn, you said, did you glaze the leaves? Could you if you did not? I did not glaze the leaves, but yes, you could absolutely do that if you have not done, if you wanted to. That would be a really beautiful, beautiful accent. So with this, you could continue to add more leaves if you wanted to. I'm going to pair just a little bit of the little lilacs in here. I have some that are in pinks. This is a bowl full that Rajni did, or you could also do the aqua colors. We're going to go ahead and use these pink ones. We recommended the Hot Mama Prills for the inside centers of the little lilacs, but you could choose to use whichever you desire. We used 8 or 9 on ours, but you can tuck in as many as you want on yours. So you can just continue to add those little flowers till you have as many on there as you like. So you can see how we just tuck those in the sides here, and then the leaves, you can continue to add those up around the butterfly as well. Jen, you said you've stripped the paper off twist ties when in a pinch. Yes. Faye, you asked, what do you glaze the leaves with? The leaves I like to glaze with crystal lacquer. Laura, you said a candy dish for crafters. Yes. Now, if this comes up missing, I know who did it. One of you has it, right? So that's the basics of that. Along the edge of the spine of this album, totally optional, but this is a really cute accent for you, is using some twine, tying that little knot, and cutting out tags from the paper collection using the luggage and tags die. This tag die actually matches a lot of the tags in the paper collection, but we glued 2 back to back and just added that to the side. So that is just strung down the center, and you've got your beautiful inset. So there's one thing that I wanted to make sure that we cover yet, and that is these beautiful accent pieces with the clear pockets. Have you gals seen these before? This is a die that's perfect. You could make this into a shaker. You could add a photo, slide it in behind it. But what we did is we used the die from the Eyelet Rectangle and Basics. Now, when you look at this, this is the one that has, it's the largest one that has a scallop. It's the 3.5 by 4.5 inch one. Isn't that beautiful? Sylvia, you said what a great class. You're a wonderful teacher. I love that you can go back and do it step by step. Yes, you'll be able to have so much fun with that. So with this, just cut out that die and use a clear acrylic. We call it clear cardstock. Frame that, and you're going to go ahead and glue that to the, you're going to glue that to these outside pockets here. You can slide a photo. You could put some funfetti in there. You could put some little messages in there. You could 3D it. You could do like a shaker with it. And then there's another one added on the inside flap down here on the bottom where that butterfly is. So that is just glued down on 3 sides. Does that make sense? Sharon, you said you just got a long time question. I kept forgetting to ask you. The luggage and tag dies. Got it. Yes, that is what we use. And then you'll see that we asked you to cut out this beautiful border. It comes from the Fleur Border and Pocket set. That piece is right on the side here. This is a total optional piece, but I think it really adds that finishing accent touch. We have added it to the top on the inside flap here, and then we have added it on the bottom of the flaps in here, and also on the flap on the very bottom. So we did that on both sides. So you can add those as many as you like. So you could add it here and down here as well. So have fun creating yours and finishing up those accents. If you're a glitter girl like I am, you'd go back and just add tons of glitter. When you close this up, it can be tricky sometimes, but add the side flaps, go up from the bottom, close it from the top, and bring it in together, and then you have the ribbon on the side to tie that. So I just want to glance over this real quick, make sure I don't have questions that got missed. Yes, as a thank you for taking the class today, you qualify for a free stamp, if not a free stamp set, a free die. So you get a free die with a $100 purchase. Enter code 47365 by August 4th, and you'll get that free die of your choice. So get those crafting goodies into your cart. Now, before we leave, I would love to know what you enjoyed about this class. You can hit the review button on the bottom of this screen and make sure that you tell us what you loved, what you learned in this class, and why you would recommend this class to other crafters. If when you do this by August 4th, you'll be entered in for a $100 shopping spree, so make sure you get that done as well. And for those of you that have been taking the classes and are here today for the first time, I just want to say thank you so much for being part of our crafting family. Our team here at Heartfelt Creations gets to do what we do each day because of you, and we consider you a very important part of our day. I don't know if you know this or not, but when you purchase with Heartfelt Creations, you are not just buying products for yourself. You're making a difference in the lives of your family when you give them the beautiful projects you make. But when you purchase with Heartfelt Creations, you also get to really help make a difference in the lives of the extreme poor. We donate 10% of our profits to help build houses for the extreme poor, to help feed the orphans. So thank you for helping being part of that and making a difference. Before I go, I just wanted to say I have a fun class coming up in September. I don't know if you've seen it online yet or not, but it's a class that I'm really excited about. You'll continue to expand on your crafting. If you think that you learned a lot today, that class will just continue to build on what we did today. This is a class that I'm really excited about because of this. It uses very little product, but really maximizes what you can do with it. Do you want to guess what it is? We're going to show you how you can create and how you can use the sweet peonies 8 different ways. Yes, you're going to learn some of my top secret shaping techniques on how you can use the sweet peony 8 different ways. You can use 2 stamps, 2 dies, and shape them 8 different ways to get completely different looks. So here is one of them. I have a whole drawer full. I just wanted to flip these out and show them to you. Here is another one. Who is saying gorgeous? Here is another one you'll get to learn. So we're gonna go just really dig into flower shaping. We're gonna do lots of fun colors. We're going to do ruffled techniques. We're gonna do stamens. We're gonna do glitter. We're gonna do lots of layering. We're gonna do flower buds, all that kind of good stuff. So if you would love to learn 8 different ways, there's actually going to be more than that, but we labeled it 8 different ways. So if you'd like to learn 8 different ways to shape the sweet peonies, get registered today. You'll get a $15 coupon that you can use on that order you're placing anyway. And I'd also say, hey, who do you know that would love to learn how to create flowers 8 different ways? You might have one of your friends that's been telling you, oh, those flowers look beautiful, but I don't know how to make them. They're the ones that need to register for the class too. So I can't wait to see you back here in September. Stay plugged in with our website. We have an amazing new collection debuting next week that will take care of all your winter crafting needs. Can't wait for you to see that. Sneak peeks are on our website right now as well. So thank you for being part of this online Vellum class. If you love this class, share it with your friends. We'll see you next time. Bye.